All right, everybody. Welcome to Unit 6, Module 2, Lesson number 1. All right, today's lesson, we are going to be classifying triangles. So we're going to need you to take out your math notebooks, and we're going to need to take some notes on the various types of triangles. Should be a review for you from Number Corners a couple months ago. All right. On page 223, if you'd open up in your student book, we'll have you draw some pictures of some triangles and then classify them when we are done. When we're all completed with today, you will have to do page 224 in your student book, and we'll come back to that later. All right, so to classify triangles, so we're going to shift our focus from coordinate graphing to geometry. We're going to develop a hierarchy, which is a sorting and classifying of objects on the basis of their properties and characteristics. So let's go ahead and ask ourselves, what do we know about triangles, right? Triangles have 3 sides, and that's an obvious thing. But we also know that the inside angles, when added together, the sum of those angles are 180 degrees. It's always 180 degrees, not more, not less. So those are some properties and characteristics of a triangle. So if you open up to page 223, go ahead and draw 4 different triangles. And go ahead and pause the video and then start it up when you're done. So now we're going to go to classifying our triangles. Now we can classify triangles 2 different ways. We can classify it by the size of their angles. Okay, an acute triangle has 3 angles that are all smaller than 90 degrees. Remember, 90 degrees is what we would see on a square or a rectangle. So all of these angles would be smaller, or this line here would be tilted in. All right, and if you take a look at this triangle, all 3 angles are tilted in. They are not the side of a square or a rectangle. So because all 3 are smaller than 90, we call it an acute triangle. Your right triangle, the second one, looks like one of the corners happens to belong on a square or a rectangle. You see that corner there? It kind of matches that corner. So we have one angle that's 90 degrees, and with having one 90-degree angle, that triangle is going to be classified as a right triangle. And then lastly, we have an obtuse triangle, and an obtuse triangle would have one angle that would be greater than 90 degrees. So remember, this is 90 degrees, and then this side would be pulled over, as this angle is right here. Now, no triangle can have 2 right angles or 2 obtuse angles, so we're only going to be looking for one angle when describing these triangles. Okay, so look through the triangles that you made and label each one of those triangles either acute triangle or obtuse, and that's on your student book, page 223. Pause the video if you need some time to finish this. All right, now the second way we can classify triangles is by the lengths of their sides. Okay, so we can have either 3 sides the same, 2 sides the same, or no sides the same. And each one of those triangles have different names. Okay, now if all sides are the same length, we're going to call that an equilateral triangle. All right. So an equilateral triangle is going to have all sides the same, and actually it's going to have all angles the same. They're all going to be right at 60 degrees. So it's going to be an acute triangle, and all sides are the same. The next type is a triangle that has 2 sides the same, and we call that an isosceles triangle. So any triangle that's going to have 2 sides that are equal length, and the third side be a little smaller or a little longer, depending on which triangle you have, it's going to be called an isosceles triangle. Lastly, we have a scalene triangle. Now remember, we have all three sides the same, two sides the same, no sides the same. In a triangle that has no sides of the same length, and you can see that here on this triangle, we have no sides that are the same, so we'd call that a scalene triangle. Go ahead and label your triangles from page 223 by the lengths of your sides. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to. All right, so next I wanted to talk to you about that hierarchy. Okay, we're going to be classifying polygons, which are shapes that have sides that are closed figures, meaning that wherever the lines start, there will be one that stops, and there are no curved sides. And we're going to be able to recognize what these shapes are by using a hierarchy. From what we know already, triangles are either equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. And when we look at this, we're first organizing our hierarchy by the number of sides, and then we are organizing them by the side lengths. This should be written in your assignment, or not in your assignment notebook, but in your math notebook, so we have something to go on for later lessons. But and what we had learned earlier is that each one of these triangles, the equilateral, isosceles, and scalene, can also be broken down into another type based on the angle size. And we have that. So now, if we have an isosceles triangle, a triangle with two same angles, right, or two same side lengths, with a greater than 90-degree angle, that would be an obtuse. We have two lengths the same with a smaller, all angles are smaller than 90. That would be our acute isosceles triangle. And then we have an isosceles triangle with two of the same length. And then with a right angle, almost looks like a square that's cut in half. We would call that a right isosceles triangle. We can do the same thing with a scalene, where no sides are the same, where the one angle is larger than 90 degrees. We call that an obtuse scalene triangle, where all angles are smaller than 90 degrees. So it's an acute scalene triangle. And then where our one angle is 90 degrees, kind of like a rectangle cut in half. And we call that a right scalene triangle. All right, so now the rest of your lesson is going to deal with going to student book page 224. If you take a look at page 224, you have the same notes that we have up here that we've used to describe and classify triangles. You're supposed to draw each one of the triangles in your on student book page 224, and then please don't forget to do the challenge. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email or post any questions you might have on Seesaw, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Again, enjoy math.